places where we fit and build supportive communities where we can be ourselves. We seek out affirming chosen families, often in response to rejection by biological families. When we travel, we leave our support networks and face the unknown. Heading north to Rockport State Recreation Area on the shores of Lake Huron, I found more reasons to doubt my welcome in the Trump flags attached to split rail fences. The Hudson Valley where I live is filled with Trump flags too. While I feel uncomfortable every time I see them, my county has a growing Democratic majority and a queer population spread out among picturesque villages. My rural neighbors have always made us feel welcome. The flags feel less threatening in the context of home. Driving toward the shores of Lake Huron, I tried to keep an open mind about Michigan. Lake Huron was a startling turquoise hue that turned deep blue toward the horizon. Growing up, I had rolled my eyes at people who compared the Great Lakes to the ocean. Visits to Lake Erie and Lake Ontario confirmed my coastal superiority. Looking out at Lake Huron's wild blue, I could admit that I had been wrong. Rockport State Recreation Area had been a limestone quarry in a former life. The porous rocks contained fossilized corals, invertebrates, and brachiopods. Michigan State Park visitors are allowed to bring up to 25 pounds of rocks and fossils home each year for free. Eliza and I walked, flipping rocks over at random. Small grooves arched in a rainbow shape. Underneath the grooves, the stone was pale, almost glittery. The arch shape repeated on a smaller scale, trace imprints of the brachiopods that thrived in a warm and shallow inland sea some 400 million years ago. On another rock, disc-shaped fossils gave a polka dot effect. The dots were the stems of ancient sea lilies, which attached themselves to the ocean floor and fed on plankton. Once we knew what to look for, we found fossils everywhere. We split up and roamed the trails, yelling back and forth when we found an impressive specimen. It was a cloudless September day with a biting wind that left whitecaps on the lake, but I was having too much fun to feel the chill. Turning over rocks was meditative. It took me back to childhood. In the shade of a Japanese maple, my best friend and I invented games. When maple seeds twirled to earth, we would pry the center apart with our fingers and stick the seeds to our noses. At my house, we would open velvety wisteria pods. We would chuck out the seeds and pretend the soft pods were spoons and we were castaways. I devoured adventure books, young adult classics like Hatchet and My Side of the Mountain, and saw myself in their male protagonists. I squatted in the dirt mixing pokeberries, rainwater, mud, and grass into a dubious potion. I didn't feel the weight of gender roles limiting my behavior, as I wasn't yet pressured to conform to an assigned femininity. I fantasized about great adventures and saw myself as an explorer. Over time, gendered messaging replaced my natural comfort outdoors with distrust. Reinforced by real-life stories of missing and murdered women and overprotective parents who saw threats lurking in every park and trail, I went from feeling at home in nature to afraid, not of the woods, but who I might encounter there. Returning to nature as an adult meant grappling with these inherited fears. There were healthy fears, as I discovered on a disastrous Florida camping trip, but it took years to unbraid the healthy fears from worst-case scenarios. Learning wilderness preparedness and investing in the right supplies gave me the courage to take longer trips. The more I explored, the smaller the anxious voice in my head got. I still felt unsafe, but I was finding my way. After an hour of sorting rocks, we had far more than we could legally take. We kept our favorites and scattered the rest for another treasure hunter to discover. It was night when we pulled into the free campground near Headlands International Dark Sky Park in Mackinac City. At the far end of the loop road was a camper decorated with bistro lights. Its homey glow made me envious. Campsites like this were first come, first served. I wanted to settle in, make a campfire, and wind down with a mug of tea. After 2 nights camping in parking lots, I needed to be in nature. It was bad enough that we'd arrived after dark and could only see what was directly in front of us, illuminated by the car's headlights. If we couldn't find a place here, I wasn't sure where we would go. "There," Eliza whispered. Near the small lake beach was a tree. Behind the tree was a flat expanse of gravel, perfect for camping and sized just right for our hatchback. We wedged our car along the tree, got out of the camp stove, and set up chairs. Unlike state park campgrounds where we inevitably ended up with noisy neighbors who blared music late into the night, the free campground was quiet and cozy. The only sound was the crackle of distant campfires. I felt safe and connected, sipping tea under a canopy of stars. In a couple more weeks, the leaves would start to turn and the temperatures would drop. I was grateful for the mild weather and the opportunity to spend a night in a special place. This was what I had imagined when planning the trip, and my quiet comfort was what I hoped to discover. I wanted to be wholly present to the experience without jumping at every noise. I wanted to lose myself, not remain self-conscious over my gender presentation or how others perceived me. I wanted to be in nature with the unself-consciousness I remembered from childhood. In the morning, I made coffee and oatmeal. We sat in our camp chairs, wrapped in sleeping bags for warmth. Morning fog burned off the lake, illuminating leaves dappled with red. We couldn't linger over breakfast as we had a full day planned, visiting Michigan's largest waterfall, Tahquamenon Falls, and the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum on the shores of Lake Superior before heading west to Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore, which offered lakeshore hikes. We'd pass by here again on our way south. I hoped we'd get lucky and stay another night, but I was learning to be comfortable with not knowing what came next. My friend Maddie lived in an artist's loft in Lansing. He insisted on putting us up in a neighboring unit, which was empty. We lay our camping pads and sleeping bags on the concrete floors. It was less comfortable than the car, but we didn't tell him that. Over his favorite Detroit-style pizza, dipped in ranch dressing, we caught up. We had last seen Maddie at our wedding. While Maddie and I had never been close in the traditional sense, he was chosen family. Queerness gave us a common language. Connecting over pizza and beers, it felt like no time had passed. Moving around throughout my 20s, I left more friends and communities than I can count. My chosen family is spread around the world, not local to where I live. This is lonely when I want comfort and connection in the here and now, when a phone call or Zoom won't do. But the distance in my personal network makes the world seem smaller. The world is full of people who will always take me in, like Maddie. We touched on politics briefly, discussing Michigan's prospects for the November 2020 election. Maddie was confident that Trump wouldn't take the state again. He was right, but of course that changed. I wanted to believe him. From Detroit to the wooded Upper Peninsula, I had embraced Michigan, and I could see myself returning, not to check a box on a bucket list, but because I chose to visit. Eliza and I had entered Michigan apprehensive about van life and our place in it. We left the state with more trust and openness than I expected to find in 10 days anywhere, much less in a state that helped to elect Trump. Driving east through Ohio, Pennsylvania, and upstate New York, I felt more love and cohesion for my country than I had in years. Out on the road, I was reluctant to trust my gut. Nothing felt right because nothing felt safe. What stopped me from driving out of every parking lot and forest was reminding myself that I've been conditioned to feel vulnerable in places like this by a culture that benefits from undermining women's autonomy and independence. Did I want to spend the rest of my life afraid of things that I have been taught to fear? Or did I want to work with those fears mindfully, learning to tell the gut twinge of intuition from the conditioned fears that I had inherited as a result of being assigned female at birth? Committing to the experience with an open mind and willingness to shift allowed me to untangle my fears. As their hold lessened, I stepped into newfound comfort and confidence.